now. Okay.
Okay.
Judith,
So,
it's all yours.
because I don't have any recent trips, I decided to resurrect some of my old ones, which is a nice way for me to go through the pictures and the albums, which I took so much trouble to put together at the time. This trip is from 2007, so I don't have the kind of vivid, recall that I would normally have. And I also decided to do something different this time. Instead of trying to recreate the trip, to put things in a historical sequence, which turned out to be a lot of work, moving all the slides around. So I sent you out 2 handouts. The map will be extremely useful if you want to know where I'm talking about. And then there's a timeline. I don't want to have to recite all this detail and, bog you down and stuff, but you can refer to it. And so you've got timelines on the far left column, and then on the far right are the examples that I will be showing you that correspond to those time periods. So I spent 6 weeks in India. It was 2 3-week trips. The first one started and ended in Delhi. And we did the Golden Triangle, Agra, Delhi, and Jaipur in Rajasthan, which is in the northwest. It's a deserty area. And then we worked our way east and went to Sarnath, which is near Varanasi on the Ganges. And everybody else flew back to Delhi. That's where the trip ended. But I took a train, an all-day train to Calcutta, and picked up a second trip. I think I covered most of it in this talk, all those places that are on the map. The trip ended in Mumbai, but before we actually left Mumbai, we went to the Ajunta and Ellora Caves. We went on the train. I'll give you a brief history of India. I just did a class that was supposed to be, I thought it was going to be on the history of India. It turned out it was on the history of British India, which was not exactly the part I was most interested in. But for some reason at the beginning, the first 3 lectures were about the very early time in India and where the peoples came from. And I've found that very interesting. I've been reading a book on DNA analysis that shows the relationships between groups of people. And that's really fascinating if anybody wants the reference to that. So there are 3 main phases of migration of people into India. The first one starting between 70,000 and 55,000 years ago. And these people are still identifiable as a distinct group. They're known as the Adivasi or tribal population, and they live in and around forests and maybe nomadic. They're sort of at the bottom of the totem pole. I don't even think I don't know if I can't remember if they're the untouchables or if they're below the untouchables, but they've had it pretty rough, I think, and they've got some legislation to protect them, but I'm not sure how well that works. So the first evidence of human remains appeared from about 30,000 years ago, and then starting in 7,000 BC, there's evidence of settled life appearing in Pakistan, and those people came from the agricultural populations, probably in Iran, and they migrated into the Indus Valley, where they first of all domesticated wheat and barley, and then followed that by domesticating goats and sheep and cattle. Now, the Indus Civilization was people settled along the Indus River, which provided them with fertile soil and regular water, and they used the river for trading, and they traded actually all the way to the Gulf states. The artifacts were found there that had obviously come from this civilization. It peaked between 2500 and 1900 BC. At some point, the climate changed, it became drier, and the Indus River changed its course, and it's thought that at least partially that's due to the continued uplifting of the tectonic plates that are colliding to create the Himalaya mountains, and they caused the river to change course. And these people had developed these fairly sophisticated towns. They had stone houses laid out on a grid. They were using the river for transportation and trade. And so when the river moved, I mean, it's like having a city on a river that's suddenly landlocked. And the civilization sort of died after that. One thing that's interesting about those people, they don't really know what happened to them, but there does seem to be a small group. I'm not sure how they established this, but a small group of people in the mountains of Pakistan that are thought to have descended from them. And then they have a very similar language to the people of southern India. So it's all those people from the Indus Civilization migrated to the south. And then there was a third wave of migration, people from Central Asia, Indo-Aryan tribes, and they worked their way into Ganges River Basin. They're known as this is known as the Vedic period from 1500 to 600 BC. The Vedas were composed during this period and formed the basis of Hinduism. And what's interesting about them is that they are poems and songs and verses, and they include descriptions of people's lives and the kind of environment they were in. And so it's been possible to sort of follow their migration route. I mean, at one point, they talk about water and ships, and that could be when they were crossing the Indus River. So moving on to things that we actually saw, the first, the Maurya Empire was the first to unify India into a single state. And it was from the 322 to 185 BC. And the first site that I'm going to show, what? Is somebody have a question? So the first place that I'm going to show you is the earliest of the ones that we saw. It's an important site for Buddhism and Jain religions. But the Buddha came to this site after his enlightenment, and which was in a town not far from Sarnath, which is fairly near Varanasi on the Ganges River. And you'll find it on your map. So a lot of the structures there were actually built by the Maurya emperor. He erected stupas and monasteries. It reached its peak in the 5th century and was destroyed by Muslim invaders over the next few hundred years. So let's show you some of the, okay, what's happening? Oh, okay. I'm just going to run through these. I can't give you a lot of detail. I think this is, I can only assume this building was put up, to deal with the tourists, that this is not.
Judith, what are we looking at?
This is Sarnath. It's an important site, religious site for Buddhists and Jains. And here's a temple. And so I don't know what these stupas are for, but we haven't got to them yet. Like these big stone structures. Here's buildings from that period. And that's the main stupa. Okay, this is the next slide. So now we're in a totally different part of the country. Inland from Mumbai are the Ajunta Caves. They were carved out of the rock face. They date from, I'm just going to show you two sets, one from 200 BC and one from 500 BC. And they include Buddhist prayer halls and monasteries. So the monasteries are often multi-story. And they have these beautiful, these usually aren't very good repair, and a lot of them are, have been damaged and are missing. So this is a 2-story structure.
Anybody have any comments or questions, just put it in the chat and I'll tell Judith.
Okay, so the next period that I'm going to consider from 230 BC to 1206 AD is known as the classical period. During this time, India was ruled by numerous different dynasties. It was broken up into different parts, and obviously there was some conflict between them. Boundaries would change, but some of them are more powerful than others. So this is an example that dates from the 4th to the 7th century, the Ayaholi temples. This is one of the more basic structures. They get more elaborate as time goes on, but they still have these beautiful carvings. Well, this is a later dynasty. It's one of the Chilocan capitals. Now, the Chilocan Empire lasted about 600 years. And I mention it here. 6th to 12th century. And this place dates from the 3rd to the 9th century. And most of the temples are 7th and 8th century. So this style of architecture is quite different from what we saw in the north, built by the Muslims.
Judith, are these Hindu?
I don't know that they are. I don't know. The problem is the Hindu is not a religion in the sense that we think of it. They have multiple gods, and you sort of choose which god you want to worship. It's kind of bizarre. I've never quite figured it out. I mean, it seems kind of nebulous. So,
I want an elephant with 5 arms.
You want what? Oh, an elephant with 5 arms?
Or 4 arms, 6 arms, whatever.
Oh, this is something else. So, where are we now? Okay. Okay, so those last 2 places I showed you are quite far south, not far from Goa. Well, they're inland from Goa, and in that same general area, we did these places on successive days. Are the Badami Caves. Now they were very interesting, quite impressive, and they were actually swarming with monkeys who were a bit of a pest. One of them actually stole somebody's camera. One of the boys had to go chasing after it. This area was the Chilocan capital, 540 to 757. There are 3 Hindu caves, and they're either dedicated to Shiva or Vishnu, and they date from the 6th century. Is this the one you're thinking of with the multiple arms?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember which one that is.
Shiva, I think.
It's
Shiva?
either Vishnu or Shiva. It's wonderful carvings. And then it overlooks this big pool. So you can see the structures all around the face of the rock. Yeah, this is the last cave, and this is a Jain cave from the 9th and 10th century. Oh no, 7th to 8th century, sorry, I missed something. Okay, now I'm going to move on to another set of caves that are further north, inland from Mumbai. In fact, we saw them in the same trip that we went to the Ajunta Caves at the end of the trip. And these are quite extensive. They are, the 12 oldest ones are Buddhist from the 7th to 8th century, and the most recent ones are Jain from the 9th and 10th century. So I can't tell you exactly what's what.
Did that elephant have eyeglasses on?
Did they what?
It looked like the elephant had eyeglasses on.
I doubt it.
Hmm.
So Judith, were these caves built as palaces or as temples or what?
They're either temples or monasteries. They're religious.
Okay.
And they're often two-story when they're monasteries. They're like dormitory accommodations. Okay, so this is Hindu. The caves numbered at 13 to 29 are Hindu. And this is the most impressive structure that you're going to see. It's built from one big piece of rock, and it's bigger than the Parthenon. It was built in 760. And it's just amazing. I mean, just the sheer size, you can see people, you know, for scale. And the intricacy of the carving, it's just amazing.
Does it have restrooms?
Hmm?
I said, does it have restrooms?
I don't remember. You mean at the time or for the visitors? Here's some of the paintings that have survived. This pillar is also carved from a single piece of rock. I mean, none of this was brought in. It was carved in situ. And there's one of the monasteries, 3-story structure. Okay, now we're over in the east, and this is Neswa. It's the capital of the state of Orissa, which is the state, I think it's immediately south of Calcutta. It was this site originally had 7,000 temples built in the 7th to 9th century. Many were destroyed by Muslim invaders, about 500 remain. The carvings are a mixture of Buddhist, Jain, and Hindu. This red stuff is mostly sandstone. Okay, not far from here on the coast. Well, it was built on the coast, but it's now about 2 miles inland, is Konarak. I'm not sure why it's now inland, but it could be sedimentation from a delta, or it could be movement of sand up along the coast. So Konarak was built in the 13th century and was conceived as a chariot to the sun god. I'm not sure what that thing's supposed to be. There's supposed to be, that may be the elephants guarding the entrance. I'm not sure. It doesn't look much like an elephant to me, but. So this site has 24 of these carved stone wheels and 7 horses. One of the horses. Okay, so now this is from the first trip. Most of the other stuff was from the second trip. Kajaro, which is sort of, it's further north than most of the other stuff we've just been looking at. It's a superb example of Indo-Aryan architecture, mostly built between 950 and 1050. But the strange thing is, nobody really knows why it was constructed, and there's quite a lot of it. It's quite an extensive site, and it shows all aspects of daily life. It's known for these erotic figures which actually make up quite a small percentage of the total, but they are quite amazing. So there's some examples. Because this site is actually quite remote from almost anywhere, it's quite well preserved. Okay, now we're up to 1206, and at that time, some Turkish tribes from Central Asia invaded northern India and set up the Delhi Sultanate. It ruled northern India and actually extended into them towards the south, but it was stopped by an empire that in the south that resulted from sort of the amalgamation of several groups of people who decided that the only way they could stop these invaders was by acting together. It lasted until 1526 when the Mughal Empire came in. I mean, the Mughals came in and defeated them. The first place we went is a town called Gulbarga. At the same time as this, there was this Delhi Sultanate. There were also individual states. And the way it seemed to work, and the way it worked for the British during their later rule, was that if these rulers would cooperate and collect taxes, then they were left in peace, and they direct rule was not imposed upon them. So this is the capital of the Badami state, and it was capital for 60 years. It's not a very particularly impressive place. Everything looks kind of derelict, and but as is often the case, the most impressive buildings are the tombs of these rulers. And here's the remains of the fort, which is in pretty bad state of repair. Okay, the next place we went to is Bijapur. And this was a much more lively town with a wealth of Muslim architecture dating from the 16th and 17th century. These rulers were all Muslims. And this is the main mosque. It has enough room for 2,000 worshippers. That's a very large, impressive building. Again, the tombs. So this is from the I think the state is also called Hyderabad, but this is the city. The state was ruled by the Qubshari dynasty for 170 years, originally from the Golconda fort, which I'll show you in a minute. But they established the new city of Hyderabad in the late 16th century. They lasted until they were overrun by the 6th Mughal emperor, but gained independence as the Mughal empire collapsed. They have a large Muslim population. In fact, the population of Hyderabad itself is actually 50% Muslim. And I took some street pictures to show you can identify the women as Muslim here. So this actually this survived as an independent state right up to independence. It was very wealthy, had a lot of minerals and gems, and it was forced to join the India when it became independent in 1948, 47, 48. And here's the fort, the Golconda Fort. I have no idea why this is like this. It's totally bizarre.
Please leave your foot.
What?
Go back one slide, please. Or 2 slides. One more.
This? More?
Look at the lower right. Please leave your foot. Oh. Go forward one. Yeah.
Oh,
Please leave your foot.
footwear, I think.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of things, a lot of these religious places, you have to take your shoes off.
Ah, okay.
I didn't realize that was there, but often I would take pictures just to show the script. I was so fascinated when you get to the south of India. In the north, a lot of the states speak Hindi or some variation of it, and they use the same alphabet, which was described to me as like clothes on a washing line, which is sort of an apt description. But when you come further south, there are numerous languages, and they all seem to have their own script. A lot of them have a lot of this kind of curly stuff. One in particular, I think it was Orissa, had a lot of circles. I found that kind of fascinating. Okay, here are the tombs of that first dynasty. And this is the palace of the ruler in later years was called the Neswa. It was a very wealthy state, as I said, and this palace is really lavish. Okay, now we are looking at the same period, but this is the Vijayanagara Empire in the south. A united front to ward off Islamic invasions. It extended as far north as Goa, so it covered quite a big area. And the main city was Hampi, which is actually in the north of its range. We spent the whole day there. It's really impressive. It dates from, I think it's the 14th century. It was very wealthy. It controlled the spice trade to the south and cotton industries of the southeast, and its population may have reached 500,000. So it's really a huge area. I don't think we saw all of it in a day even. They seem to like these chariot-like structures with wheels. I'm pretty sure that's not Hindu, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure that belongs there. Look how elaborate this is.
Judith, you know if acid rain is deteriorating these structures?
What?
Do you know if acid rain is deteriorating these structures?
Well, I don't know, but what specifically, but they are, they are degrading with time. It's the ones that, sandstone's not a very dense rock. I think it's fairly easily eroded. I have no idea how much excavation occurred to reveal these structures. This is down near the river. This is the marketplace. People actually live here still. Impressive looking chap. Well, that's the Queen's Palace. I remember that. And these are the elephant stables. And that's the Queen's Bath. And now we reached the period of the Mughal Empire. It was established in 1526 by Muslim invaders from Central Asia. The first emperor was Babur, 4 years, and when he died in 1530, his son Humayun took over. He ruled for 10 years and then was ousted and exiled to Persia, but he was able to return 15 years later, but unfortunately died the following year. So he was succeeded by the third and most famous emperor, Akbar the Great, and he built a lot of the structures that I will be showing you. He was the grandson of Babur, and he extended Mughal rule over most of India. There were 6 emperors of importance. The last one, in general, these rulers that came in and ruled India were pretty tolerant of local customs and local religion. And so there was this sort of truce, you pay your taxes and we leave you alone kind of thing. And I think they also had to supply troops for the army. But the 6th emperor decided he needed to convert the country to Islam. And that really upset people. And since he was spending most of his time involved in military campaigns, he ended up not being a very effective ruler. And the decline of the Mughal Empire started during his reign, about 1700. And central authority declined, and a lot of the regional powers decided that they wanted to be independent. And during this period, of course, the East India Company was around, especially starting around the Calcutta area. And they gradually took over larger and larger portions of the country, although they found that it was very expensive to try and rule the country directly. So they too worked with local rulers where they were cooperative. Anyway, this is the tomb of Humayun, the 2nd emperor in Delhi. That's the sign. It's a World Heritage Monument. And there it is. Well, it's just amazing, these tombs they built. You can imagine the amount of labor that went into them. Okay, now we are in Agra, which was the capital of the Mughal Empire from 1556 to 1648. It was Akbar that moved his capital to Agra because he thought moving south would give him more control over more southerly regions. His, I think it was his grandson, Shah Jahan, who moved the capital back to Delhi. And he was also responsible for building the Taj Mahal. which this is the entrance to the Taj Mahal, to house the tomb of his favorite wife. And I'm sure you're familiar with this picture. Early in the morning, and there was this kind of mist. Just amazing, the detailed work. Well, this is the Agra fort, built by Akbar, but his grandson Shah Jahan, the one who built the Taj Mahal, made significant alterations and additions to the structure. I think this is the tomb of a minister who actually was the father-in-law of the Shah. Okay, this is the last place on my list. This is the Fatehpur Sikri. It was built by Akbar the Great and used as his capital from 1571 to 1585. It has it's in a very dry area, not far from Agra. And they built an elaborate irrigation system, and there's a huge reservoir there, but it was constantly plagued by water shortages, and it was abandoned after Akbar's death. So it was used for a very relatively short period, despite all this elaborate construction. And there's one of the reservoirs. I think that's it. That's it. So I'm sure I've confused you all completely.
So Judith, that's the last of your slides?
Yes.
Okay, let me kill that then.
Are there any questions, or are you also bemused by the whole thing?
Open your mics up, guys.
Judith, I have a question.
Mhm.
What did you learn about India? What was your takeaway from the trips?
It's very crowded. And it was very irritating. Every time you got off the bus, you were swarmed by these kids trying to sell you. That was my main impression. It really put me off going back, actually. But, I mean, there's wonderful architecture. There's just tons of stuff to see. You know, a very long and rich history.
Did you eat any street food when you were there? Eat in the hotels or what?
I don't remember eating street food. I mean, you have to be a bit careful.
What was your favorite place that you went to when you were in India?
Well, Hampi was really impressive. I like the caves. Well, there was one town that we really enjoyed that I actually didn't show you, Orca. It had a bunch of temples, and I can't remember what the time period was.
Judith, did you
I
ever
mean,
get
it's,
did you ever get the point where you said another night, another temple, you know, just like, oh boy, just another temple?
well, there actually was a lot of, I think Explore does a very good job of mixing things up, you know. It usually includes some kind of a boat trip, although I don't remember anything in here. But and the first trip in particular, I was tempted to add some slides, and maybe I should have. was partly in national parks. We were looking for tigers. So that created, a lot of variety. And then we went to Rajasthan. That's a very different country. I almost included some of those pictures too, because the people there use camels. And I found that just really, in fact, maybe I can find one or two of those pictures.
When are you going back?
Oh, I'm probably not. I would like to see more of the South, especially Kerala. But I doubt very much. I think my days of these really long flights are over, and now I sort of feel I've got out of the habit of doing all this stuff.
What's your next trip?
Well, I booked a trip for September that goes from Montreal to Boston. I mean, I just was. I think that was a good decision, actually, because I'm not sure that we're going to be wanting to go to places like Europe anytime soon. Can you see this still? Are we still on share screen?
No, I killed it.
Oh.
Do you want me to bring it? Well, you have to bring it back up.
Okay.
So go to share screen and then click on the box
I
that
got
shows.
it, yeah.
Okay, there you go.
So I really love this part of the country. And look, these people are moving house on these camels.
Oh my.
And these puppies up here. I don't know if you can see my arrow,
So
but up with this little
skinny.
boy, there are a couple of puppies up there. I mean, I thought that was just really delightful.
Judith,
Aw.
where is that?
This is Rajasthan, which is it's northwest. Do you know where Jaipur is?
Yeah. I'm just looking at your map, but there's a big empty space in the northwest.
Here's a good example of what it looks like. It's very dry, although they are growing things. It's probably irrigated. I love this picture with that camel. I don't know if I can find some of the tigers. I
Oh
didn't
my
really have
goodness.
the right camera for pictures of tigers because we never got really close to them. These pictures, I rearranged the pictures for the talk and it seemed to have messed up my whole collection. Here's one. Can you see that?
Yeah, the donkey, or not donkeys, what are they? Oh,
No, there's tiger.
Oh, yeah.
oh,
Wow.
So we went to a couple of national parks and I always enjoyed, the nature stuff. It just mixes things up. And sometimes we go on a hike, although I don't think there were any hikes in this trip. There's plenty of walking around ruins, but.
So Judith, what was you went with an organized tour? Is it Explorer or who?
Yeah, it's a British company. I almost always go with them. They're extremely good value. They stay in local hotels. They use public transportation if they can. We were on the trains quite a bit. It was funny recently. I was doing this course on India and they showed a talk from somebody who said, well, unlike in Britain, the trains run on time. And I was like, well, that must have changed a hell of a lot in 13 years because when we were there, they were appalling. They were mostly single track. And so a train would get delayed, say 2 hours, and we would be in a siding waiting for it to pass because that was the only way the two trains could pass. So then we were delayed 2 hours and it just throws the whole system off. So I don't know if that has changed. It would have to change a lot. This is a fairly typical scene. People washing their clothes in the river. Oh yeah, we saw elephants. We actually had a ride on an elephant. It was supposed to be a way of getting closer to the tigers, but I don't think we had a lot of luck with that. I'm not sure. Oh, this is another picture I like. I really like some of these local shots. I can't believe the way these pictures are all mixed up now. I don't know if I'll ever get them straight. It would be quite a project. Why would that have happened, but Brand? I
Sorry?
copied them into another file and moved them around, and now this one's all messed up.
It's really sad when that happens.
We went to a school, and the government, it was probably an international organization, but had provided funds so that they could feed the kids at lunchtime. So this was them preparing lunch for the school kids.
Well, that looks labor intensive.
Here's somebody's homestead. It looks like a pretty prosperous family. So I think that's about it. Any more questions?
What's that last picture?
Oops. That was Kajura, where with the erotic statues.
Oh,
I'm going to see if there's anything on the other that I missed.
I'll explain it to you if you want.
Buck, are you still trying to give people wood?
Yeah. So, Judith, what did you notice about women's activities or their status?
Women?
Yeah.
I don't remember having any impressions particularly.
Okay. Huh.
This one's sort of sitting up there rather comfortably.
Yeah.
I liked this irrigation system they had. So he's pulling this lever up and down to get, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but he's trying to get water from this canal into the fields. But, oh, I think this is probably scooping up the water, and then I can't remember exactly, but I know at the time I was really intrigued by that. Oh, well, I did have more.
could we use some system like that for Solterra to get the water out of the?
That would be fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
What's up on the top of that hill?
On what? This?
Yeah, at the very top of the hill.
Yeah, it's probably all part of this fortification. I think this is a part of the fort. I'm not sure. So that's probably more lookout sides. The seaside town. We spent the night there. It wasn't very exciting, but that was the place. By the time we got there, I'd been traveling for about 4 weeks, and I got quite a nasty respiratory infection. The dust there is so contaminated. It's really dirty. And I went to a local doctor. That was an interesting experience. He prescribed an antibiotic. And so I walked into this clinic with all these locals who were waiting there. They were women mostly. And I was so embarrassed because they insisted on making me jump the queue. They saw me first. And then they charged me like 30 or 40 cents. And I tried to give the doctor some money or to pay for some of the people, and he wouldn't take any. I mean, it just, the level of what little money it would have taken to make those people enrich those people's lives, I wouldn't have even noticed. And yet somehow I couldn't get him to take it, even to buy medicine or. But it was kind of interesting to do something different like that. I think we spent the night there, and then we got the train to Hyderabad.
Judith, did the people seem happy or did they seem oppressed or what?
Well, I think people are content unless they see something better, you know. I think most people are pretty content unless they're having something different, you know, shoved down their throat so they can't avoid the comparison, but they don't know any different. I'm sure they're working pretty hard to, you know, feed their families. Sometimes you'd see women, you know, the poorest women, they'd be making money by sitting by the side of the road, breaking up rocks to build roads. So there was some real poverty. Oh, I love this picture. Oh, these women with the fish on their heads. I had a better one than that one. If these are all out of order, I may not be able to find it. Oh, here it is. This is one of my favorite pictures. I like taking women from the back, particularly if they've got a baby on their back. This is in Calcutta. He's making these statues. I can't believe how messed up these are. This is Mumbai. There's the Gandhi Museum. Okay, that's it.
Any final questions? Okay, well,
Thank you
let's
so much, Judith.
Thank you,
Let's-
Judith.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Judith.
Judith. That was really
let's
interesting.
thank Judith.
Oh,
Thank you, Judith. It was awesome.
oh, was it? I hope you got something out of it.
Oh, I appreciate it very much.
Definitely.
And y'all come for the talk on Saturday.
Oh,
Okay,
Nancy's there somewhere too.
it'll be a very different talk than this one.
Okay.
Okay.
Remind him to record it because I can't come tomorrow.
Okay, it'll be recorded. So all you
Oh,
come.
is that Katie? Hey.
Oh, look, it's Katie's here.
Hello.
How are things, Katie?
Stressful.
Intense.
That's okay. That's what I signed up for.
Well,
How's
we
everybody
miss
there?
you. Are you still hoping to come back?
Christmas maybe. To visit.
What?
Visit, yes. Yeah, I don't know what plans are for the future. That's going to depend on jobs and all that, but that's still a long ways off. So,
Forever.
yeah. But good to see everybody.
Next year, do you do classes or are you doing clinic stuff?
Yeah, rotations will start in January.
Oh,
Wow, I didn't realize that. That's
Yep.
soon.
So
Relatively. Wow.
then I have a year and change of that before I'm done. So
you have what? A year what?
a year and change, a little bit more than a year of rotation. Well, no, right around a year of rotations.
So I thought the whole thing was 2 years, but it sounds more like 2.5. Right?
It's 28 months. Yeah.
Oh.
But I gotta go study some pulmonology.
What?
So good to see everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
See you all tomorrow on Zoom, 7 p.m. sharp. Sue, you're on mute.
Bye.
Good night.
Night. See you, Sue. Love you.
Say hi to Laura for me.
Will
Good
do.
luck getting her.
Yeah. In fact, I just got a note that their flight just took off. So
Oh, no, is that late? Yeah.
it's early, actually.
Oh, really? Well, you better make sure you get there then.
Yep.
Okay, well, you planned everything as well as you could. Is the weather good for your flight tomorrow?
It's questionable.
Oh.
So we'll find out. Anyway, call me tomorrow morning.
Okay, love you.
Love you.
Night.
Yeah. Good night. Have a good sleep.
I'll try, you too.
Yep. Bye-bye.